back, everybody. It's Chad Kassem here with another video. Today we're going to talk about some one of my favorite labels, Pablo Records. First of all, thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking some time to check out this channel if you haven't seen it before. For those of you who are back, thank you for being here. If you haven't done it already, please subscribe and like the video. If you do, it helps the algorithms and all that good stuff. But anyhow, thank you all for being here. So today I want to talk to you about some new records and some older records that I'd like to see the folks maybe up at Acoustic Sounds reissue. Chad Kassem is doing a great job and has picked some great titles so far to reissue. And thank you for doing that, Chad. I know it's your passion as well as your business, and you're doing a good job both ways. So today, guess what showed up? Two new Pablos. Bassy Jam, one of the best sounding records that Pablo ever put out. It was done again in the mid-'70s, like many of the Pablos. Great people on here. You got Louis Bellson, you got J.J. Johnson, the great Harry Edison, who I need to do a video of. Zoot is on this, Eddie Davis on tenor. And of course, Count Basie on piano. He plays organ on this. Extremely well recorded. This just came in here an hour or two ago. This will be tonight's listen, and I'm sure it's great. I've got 2 or 3 copies of this already. You know, I'm constantly looking for Pablo records. I even buy stuff that I already have if the jackets are in good condition. You know, they're all predominantly black, and they don't take wear and tear very well. They tend to get beat up or look more beat up because of their fact that they're black jackets. So I look for good quality jackets. Sometimes I replace the jacket that I'm using with a newer one if I can find it. And you're still around. You can still find these Pablos between $8 and $20 in many locations. But that's a great record. It's been reissued. It just shipped, and it just came in today. And guess what else came in today? Another great sounding record. This is again one of the best ones they've ever done. It's Dizzy Gillespie's Big Four. Again, this is a reissue by Acoustic Sounds and pressed up there at their pressing facility, Quality Record Pressings. Again, recorded in '25 and reissued recently by the folks at Acoustic Sounds, and of course licensed by Concord, who owns the library for Pablo these days. But Dizzy, Ray Brown, Joe Pass, Mickey Roker. This is a great sound. When you hear Mickey Roker playing this, I can't wait to hear this one. I bet the top end is a little bit better than the original. The original's real good, but the drums sound great. But the cymbals on the original record are a little bit not the way I like to hear them, but I bet this is better. I don't know who did the mastering on this, but I guarantee you that it was done well. Thank you, Chad, for doing these. It's a great endeavor, and we're going to talk about some things that I'd like to see reissued coming up, maybe next year. I know they work about a year out, sometimes longer, getting tapes in place, licensing, all sorts of things. It's not easy to reissue records these days, I think, and they do a great job up there. But you know, they reissued a couple of Count Basie records, 88 Basie Street and the what's it, Farmers Market Barbecue, I think it's called. Came out last month. Really well done. That band was one of the Basie's last bands. It was they were done in the early '80s, I believe, shortly before Basie died. But Count Basie was not real well when those records were made, and You know that acoustically they sound great, and you know, I think there's a couple other Basie records that Pablo did, big band records that I think the band actually sounds better on. Maybe not acoustically as good, close. One is a record called On the Road. I've got two copies of this. This is the original Pablo. This is one of the digital recordings. Even though it's a digital recording, it does sound good. I wish it was analog, but it was done digitally back in the 70s or late 70s, maybe early 80s. Um, I think musically, this record is every bit as good as 88 Basie Street, um, but maybe a little bit more exciting, if you will. I think the band was a little bit more on fire, believe it or not, than the last two reissues. So, Chad, if you're listening, take a listen to this. If you have the tapes, man, it's a really good recording. I've got a Japanese pressing that I bought, um, and the top end on this is a little bit brighter than the original Pablo. Very, very good pressing. The vinyl's a little quieter than, of course, the original Pablo. Both are in good condition. But again, this is one I would consider doing. Check it out, and you know, I'd love to see that. Another Count Basie I'd love to see them do is, you know, a Count Basie Kansas City 3. And man, Louis Bellson, Ray Brown, how do you beat those guys? You know, Louis Bellson, the great drummer Louis Bellson, he had the ability to play in a big band and really sound great in a big band, and also play in a small band, small quintets and trios, very tastefully, very similar to Mel Lewis, who could do both. There's a few people who can do that. Buddy Rich did that early in his career. Later in his career, I think became a big band drummer, and his ability to play in small groups was not as good as it was back in the 50s. But at any rate, Kansas City 3, I'd love to see this reissued, and, uh, and it's really great. Um, you know, I'm not sure. I should have gone back and looked. I'm not sure if this is going to be reissued this year or not. It may be, and if it is, pardon me. Great sounding record. Um, the great Count Basie and the great Oscar Peterson. And, you know, Count Basie and Oscar Peterson kind of are very, very different pianists in a lot of ways. But in a lot of ways, they're the same. The ability to play blues, you know, maybe Oscar was played a little bit technically a little bit better than Count Basie, but soulfully and tastefully, I think Count Basie was kind of an underrated pianist, kind of like Duke Ellington. Duke Ellington was a really great pianist. A lot of people don't really know that, but Basie holds his own on here, and it's a very, very good recording. I'm not sure if this is coming out. I should have looked on Chad's list or Acoustic Sounds list this year to see if this is on the list. It may be. If it isn't, I sure would love to see this come out maybe next year. I'll tag Chad Kassem on this, and I hope Chad listens to this and maybe get some ideas. He's probably way ahead of me on this anyhow, knowing him. Um, Harry Edison and the great Oscar Peterson again on Pablo in the 70s. You know, a lot of these records were recorded in L.A. in the RCA studio, which was one of the best recording studios in the country at the time. It had really good engineers, good mastering people. I think Val Valentine may have done this record. Done many great records, great mastering, a great engineer. But this is again another great sounding record. And Harry, one of his best sounding records, I think. Harry Edison and Oscar Peterson, um, two geniuses. Love to see this one. Um, Look at this. I grabbed it. I didn't have it. This is a brand new copy. I haven't even opened this one. I picked this up somewhere. Don't know where. But again, you know, I look for these because, you know, you can see the wear, you know, if you look real close. And this one's in pretty good shape. If you look real close, you can maybe see the white wear on that corner there. They get Pablo records because of the black jackets get really beat up really fast. This is an unopened record from 1974. Wow. Um, it's about 40 something years old. Um, but I'm really glad to have this. I have a pretty good copy, but it's one of my favorite records. I have an unopened copy. It's really cool. Um, Here's a great record. You know, Zoot Sims did a lot of recording on Pablo, and this is a great record, and it's called "Quietly There." Zoot Sims plays Johnny Mandel, the great Johnny Mandel, composer and writer. Did a lot of movie themes and other tunes. Great writer, and this is a great record, great sounding record. If you don't have this, look for it. Again, with Zoot Sims and Chuck Berghofer, great LA bass player. Nick Ceroli, drummer. And Nick Ceroli, believe it or not, for those of you who don't know, he was the drummer on Herb Alpert's Tijuana Brass. And a great Victor Feldman on percussion and vibes, along with Mike Wolford. Piano player, played with Dizzy, some East Coast bands and some West Coast things. Really great player. But what a great band. Wolford, Berghofer, and Ceroli with Victor Feldman. Again, recorded in Hollywood, Ocean Way, the great Ocean Way studio in 1984. So a later record, but it's great playing and great sounding record. The great Zoot Sims on Pablo. This record that I have I'm holding. Let's see if I can take this out and show it to you because it's a reissue done by Elemental Music, which is a little bit different label than a normal Pablo label. And Elemental Music is a company, a record uh, company from Spain, and it was a undertaking by a Spanish gentleman and the great Zeb Feldman, who is now at Impex and doing some other things with reissues. But this is done under the Elemental Music release label using the Pablo insignia, but a little bit different label. This is a European pressing, heavy, and really sounded good. Good quiet vinyl. But this is a great sounding record. Uh, if you're checking this one out, Chad, I would really take a listen to that one. Um, let's see, what else do I have here? Well, here's another Zoot Sims. This is a great record, and it's a great title. I Wish I Were Twins. Great record. I think that Jimmy Rolls is on piano on this, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Jimmy Rolls, Frank Tate on drums, on bass, and Akira Tana on drums. Akira Tana, I first saw him working with Art Farmer in New York back in the 70s and early 80s. But really, really some good playing on here. Zoots actually plays soprano sax on one or two tunes on here, which he doesn't do very often. But he plays well. He plays really well. I think he's really a tenor player, but he plays some some soprano on here, recorded in 1981. And this was recorded in RCA in New York, not in LA. But it sounds good. I think it's worth listening to, and maybe thinking about reissuing this one. This is a little bit of a more eclectic title, one that's a little bit tough to find, I think. But I think it's neglected. It's great playing by Zoot Sims and a really good sounding record. One of the best sounding records. This was funny because later in Pablo's illustrious history, they went to doing some color photography on the front. And this is a really amazing record. After the rain, it's Michel Legrand, and of course he plays piano on here with the great Ron Carter, Grady Tate, very tasty drummer. There's a guitar player on here. Joe Wilder on trumpet. Joe, he's a good player. Did some work with bass and some other things. But of course, Zoot Sims is on here, and Phil Woods is on here. I think it's one of the, maybe the only Pablo record that I know of. Maybe there's another one that actually features Phil Woods, because he was recording on some other record labels at the time. But he did a recording that he played on this recording as well. Um, and really done well. And this was done in New York in the early '80s as well. So this is a later Pablo, um, but sounds really good, and it would be a great record to reissue. How about the great Benny Carter? Benny didn't record too much on Pablo, on a couple albums. I think this is his best, and again sounds great. Uh, it's pretty interesting on this recording. This was done in L.A. and it was done back in 1976, um, with uh, Joe Pass on guitar, Milt Jackson vibes. There are two. Actually, Tommy Flanagan's on piano on this. Jake Hanna on drums, the great West Coast drummer, Jake Hanna. But Benny Carter, man, Benny Carter and Johnny Hodges. I mean, they set the standard for alto playing. And if you check out, some of the things that Parker has said, and guys like Sonny Stitt and the great alto players, they'll all go back to Benny Carter and Johnny Hodges. That's where their sound came from. What a great sound! Benny Carter, I think, and Phil Woods will tell you the same thing, or would tell you the same thing. Fortunately, Phil has passed away, but he was very big Benny Carter proponent. Great sounding record, the old Pablo label. Um, Man, what a great record from, I think, '76. And how about a Pablo record? There's a whole legacy that Pablo did with Art Tatum, number of records, 6 or 7 of them, maybe more. But here's a recording that was done with Red Callender on bass, Bill Douglas, I don't know too much about on drums. But how about Art Tatum and Ben Webster on Pablo? And from 1975, recorded in L.A. Great sounding record. Ben Webster on Pablo. Not too much Ben Webster you can find on Pablo, but a really good. I bet the tape, if the tape is in good condition, I bet this is great. When you do these reissues, a lot of it has to do with the quality of the tapes, and some are going to be better than others. And just because I'm kind of suggesting these for reissue, it'll have to do with the quality of tape, the availability of the tape. A lot of things go into it, but just some of the best, I think, the best sounding Pablo records that you can find around. Um, what a great legacy that Norman Grant's left for us on Pablo. So let's see. One other record that came in this week, that actually came in yesterday, is the new Jerome Saba record called Heart. You may have heard his last record, which was great. This is with Al Foster on drums and Joe Martin on bass. There's no piano player on here, so it's. I think it's going to sound fairly similar to Way Out West, the Sonny Rollins record. But we'll have to see. I was talking with I do I'm not on the roster, but I get on with some folks who do a great classical stream. I think I mentioned in the last video called Audiophilia, AUDIOPHILIA, on Wednesday nights at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern, on YouTube live. It's all classical music, which is great. We're going to talk about a record here in a minute. But in fact, I don't know if it's next week or the week after. Um, Anthony, who runs Audiophilia, has managed to get Jerome to be on the stream. So we're going to talk to him. I believe it might be in 2 weeks. I don't think it's next week. I think it's in 2 weeks. But it's every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. Um, But what a good player. What a great player. It'll be interesting to hear how this is. I'm sure it's first class. It's by Jerome's record company called Analog Tone Factory. It's all analog, and it was mastered by Bernie Grunman of all people. So it's got to be good, and all done on analog tube recorders and processing equipment. So I'm sure this is going to sound great. Al Foster, man, Al's got to be, I bet Al's 80 years old. He's played with everybody. I bet this is going to be a great album. I can't wait to listen to this tonight. I bought this directly off Jerome's website. I think that's the only place you may be able to get it. They're numbered. I don't know how many they're going to issue. This is number 261. I think it doesn't say on here how many they're going to issue, but it'll be a small batch. I would consider picking this up, folks. A good player, and I'm sure a great sounding record. Jerome Saba, Heart is the name of the record. Great cover, too. So I promised everybody I'd do a classical record every week. And last night we were on our classical stream, we talked about Vivaldi and Vivaldi's kind of his iconic piece that he wrote called The Four Seasons, featuring harpsichord, orchestra, and important violin work on there. This is, and it's funny because Anthony pulled this up as his favorite record. I happen to have it out as well, so we've both agreed on this. This is the old Argo recording with the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields Orchestra from England, directed by, of course, Neville Marriner, who was there for years and years and years. And this, I think, is just the greatest recording of this. Argo has always put out good sounding records. I think it was owned by Decca, so Decca really knew how to record. It's recorded extremely well. Alan Loveday is the violinist on here, does a great job. But this is not a new record. It's been out many, many years. I'm sure it's been reissued. I haven't looked. This is the original Argo, on the original Argo label, and I'm sure that it is really, 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 really good. It's interesting. I've had this about 10 years. This record. And there's a note on here: cleaned August 20th, 1977. And there's it's pretty interesting here. It tells you about record care and fingerprints and all that good stuff. It's interesting to see some of these old inner sleeves, what's on them. But anyhow, Vivaldi, The Four Seasons. It's a must for your collection if you collect classical music. And you may be able to even stream this. I don't know if this is on streaming service. Check it out. If you can find a clean copy of this, this is the one to have. Anyhow, that's about it for today. Chad, if you're listening, those are some of the Pablo records I would, I take a look at. What do I know? Just my favorites. And they sound really good. I bet if the tapes are in decent shape, they'd make great reissues. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Acoustic Sounds and Chad, for doing all these great reissues. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.